Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Financial Gallery. It's a show hosted by me. Today, we're going to talk about four stocks to invest in for 7+ years. So, all right, here we go, right to it. First one, we got Apple, right? Simple as that. Second one, Microsoft. Third one, NASDAQ 100. This is an ETF that tracks stocks on the NASDAQ exchange. I'll get more in depth about this eventually. And the last one is the S&P 500, which is also an ETF. So, boom, now we're going to talk about Apple. Largest company in the world. Honestly, things are really that simple sometimes. I think in order for, in investing things to really materialize, you have to do things over and over and over again, which is really all things. For you to see true success in something, you have to do it for a long time, right? So largest consumer ecosystem in the world, right? You think about iMessage, you think about AirPods, you think about Apple Watch, Apple Pay, all these things, just the consumerism of it isn't going anywhere. They're good products, right? They generally provide value to our lives, make things more efficient. So at least for now, right? These things aren't going anywhere. Right? They're an innovative company, right, to create these things, and they're also profitable. They also make money. The company isn't too much, right, based on future projections or guess in the future. It's also about just what they're doing right now, like what's actually in the field. So yeah, the company is worth $3 trillion. Like, what does that even mean? What is a trillion? It just really shows the size of the company, right? They generate about $380 billion in revenue. Astounding number, right? And for every dollar that they spend, they're getting back $1.25, right? So just back to the point about them being profitable. Yeah, and a fun fact, Apple generates about $15 billion in AirPods revenue, right? But what does that really mean? You have to put things in comparison sometimes. So the music industry overall, globally, generates about $31 billion, right? So Apple is selling half the amount of that just in AirPods, just in headphones. It's a really, really astounding number, just how big this company really is. So moving forward, boom, Microsoft, second largest company in the world. Sometimes the answers are right in front of our face, but it really takes time to believe and have trust in them, right? They're the largest business ecosystem in the world. Either you, your teammates, or your boss have all used Excel, Microsoft Word, right, to gather things down and record information, Teams to connect and communicate with each other, right? Outlook to send emails to each other, and OneDrive to store all your data. This is one of the many services that Microsoft offers, but it's definitely already evident, in the business ecosystem, like I said. And then again, innovative company to create products like this, and they're profitable, right? They're also worth about $3 trillion. So we're just throwing around these, T's and B's words, right? $3 trillion, $208 billion in yearly revenue. Kind of just throwing around these astounding numbers yet again. And for every dollar that they spend, they get back $1.35. So can't beat that. Can't beat that. It's about what they're doing right now. Also, we can't forget that these services aren't going anywhere for now. So, and another fun fact, they generate about $15 billion in gaming revenue. Right, their Xbox, their software games, like things like that. And the gaming industry in the US generates about $45 billion per year. So a third of every sales of, gaming relating products usually goes to Microsoft. So kind of crazy to think about, right? Excuse me. All right, boom. Now the NASDAQ 100. This is a ETF that tracks the top 100 companies on the NASDAQ exchange. I'll get more specific about what an ETF actually is in future videos. So now I guess just taking note to the information presented will be pretty important and effective for learning, right? So you have broad exposure to the technology sector. I believe it's about 50% of the ETF goes to technology companies. And these companies are focused on innovation, right? And driving the world forward. So definitely something that, I think the average person would want to be involved in. And in the ETF, there's about $230 billion locked up in it, right? So $230 billion say, hey, I trust the assets that are under this ETF, right? And they have high exposure to companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, right? The first two, as I just talked about, but also Google and Amazon. These companies essentially run the current world. So Yeah, then again, I feel like the average person or any average person would want to be involved in something like that, and that's about 28% of it. And it's averaging about 15 to 20% over the last 10 years, right? Does past performance indicate future expectations? No, but they can be cousins, right? It can be 12%, which is, I think, is completely viable for then again the average person. So yeah, moving forward, S&P 500, another ETF, and this tracks the top 500 companies in the US. So it's definitely a more broad exposure, right? It's a diverse portfolio, with technology, healthcare, and financial services being the top three sectors of our economy, right? So if you look at things like this, you could say, oh, for all the money that goes around, most of it goes to these top three sectors, right? And then again, like I said, the overall US economy, like what's going on, from a high level view. And this ETF has about $457 billion locked up in it, right? Assets under management, just throwing around the B words like that, right? And yeah, for every $100 that you invest in it, you get back $1.40, right? So we can see how that adds up. I feel like you can do the math in your head and just realize how valuable, along with getting about 7 to 10% per year, right? You can also get 1.5% back in dividends. So we do things again and again and again, you can really see how viable they can be over time, right? And that's with anything. That's with learning. That's with reading. That's with learning the code. That's with, doing push-ups. That's with practicing for a sport, practicing for a music test, right? A music performance, school test, right? You can literally go on and on and on. Driver's test. I mean, you can literally go on. Really have to do things over and over and over again to really see viable progress. I think that's a message that's pretty important. So I also wanted to talk about, right? So what do I do with all this information? Example portfolio. So if you had $100, maybe you might say, hey, I want exposure to the stock market, right? But I don't want too much. But I still want to be invested, in innovation and companies that drive the world forward. Here's an example. If you had $100, you could put 80 into the S&P 500, right? And 20 into QQQ, right? You have enough, excuse me, the NASDAQ 100 ETF, right? The ticker is QQQ. And, so you have enough exposure of the overall economy, but also you can dip and dabble. And then again, companies that are innovative and drive the world forward. Because that's, I think any normal person would want to be invested in that, right? Portfolio two. Like, hey, I want a broad exposure, but I still want a little bit into Apple, Microsoft. Boom, here's an example, right? 60% SPY, 30% QQQ, 5% Apple, 5% Microsoft. Adds up to 100 there, right? But you can switch Apple, Microsoft for Google and Amazon or Tesla or Nvidia, right? But it's kind of whatever you want. But personally, this is things that I like to do. I'm heavily invested in Apple and Microsoft, so just gonna keep it going that way. Right, last portfolio. 70% S&P 500, 20% Apple, 10% Microsoft. You can really do whatever you want. So yeah, there's just some examples about how you can go about things. It's kind of whatever works for your psychology at the end of the day. That's what it is, right? So boom, that's it for now. Some sources that I use is Yahoo Finance, Barron's, and Robinhood. Even though Robinhood is a brokerage app, right? But they have quick little information that you can attain pretty quickly. So yeah, so there we go. Boom, that's the end for now. This is not financial advice. I'm not a registered financial advisor. It's just education and notes. Really, it's really what it is. I appreciate those who got to this point. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. I hope I helped people who got here to learn and maybe motivated them to make steps in their financial journey. So for now, thanks for listening. Peace, love, and prosperity. Bye.